We've seen this guy before. Our good cherry-cheeked friend, this president of the Soybean Farmers Association, talking about how they continue to take it on the chin.
What we need long term is strong markets and competition for the products we're producing. We want to make a profit from the market. We need competition for our soybeans. We are bleeding economically. We're losing a lot of money. Our economist at the American Soybean Association says that we're going to lose $109 per acre on every acre that's produced in soybeans in this country this year. On 83.4 million acres, that is a lot of money being lost. And what we need is competition. We need a level playing field, and we get that by not having tariffs that are in place and the retaliatory tariffs that result. And we need to be able to compete fairly with the competitors from around the world. Right. Brazil is our largest competitor. And right now they're kicking our tail because they have about a 20% price advantage in the Chinese market. And we can see an example what happened here recently with the Argentina holiday that was taken on when they put the tax at the export tax, when they did the tax holiday and they had a level playing field. The Chinese came into the Argentina market and purchased immediately because the price was competitive once again. We would see the same thing happen with our soybeans if we had a level playing field and didn't have a 20% retaliatory tariff in place that the Chinese have levied.
So that guy who keeps showing up on interviews and keeps telling us the next step of the devastation that's happened, end up talking about Brazil and Argentina anymore. You know, that Argentina being the country that we bailed out for $20 billion to save Scott Bessent and his best friends and their investments in the radical, stupid things that they forced that new president to then do. He keeps talking about how devastating this is for them. And also there, if you heard, China's circumventing our dumb asses to then go find other sources of trade, while Donald Trump keeps talking about how he's got a great relationship with him. Man, this guy's so stupid. But let me show you one other thing really fast on the farmer stuff. Since there's bailout talk for farmers, there's another aspect that this administration is proposing and promoting outside of that bailout that's very temporary, and it takes more of our money to do nothing except continue to have us fail behind it. What is they're doing as far as their deportation policies, and many of the folks who worked in on these farms, many of which undocumented workers and folks. I do think that we take advantage of these undocumented folks. I do think that we treat them and pay them way less than what these folks are worth. Look at what the Trump administration is talking about. They've created. So the Trump administration said that its immigration crackdown is hurting farmers and risking higher food prices for Americans by cutting off agriculture's labor supply, that being those undocumented workers that they said they hate but also love. The Labor Department warned in an obscure document filed with the Federal Register last week that the near total cessation of the inflow of illegal aliens, they say, is threatening the stability of domestic food production and prices for U.S. consumers. Now, in a roundabout weird way where they're not on Air Force One and they're not standing in front of a podium, they're talking about how their policies are destroying things even further. It's not just of these tariff things. It's also, of course, about this mass deportation policy. Here's more. Unless the department acts immediately to provide a source of stable and lawful labor, this threat will grow. With an increased funding for immigration enforcement from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the Labor Department said that in the Federal Register, which is the place where all proposed rules are recorded for the public to view and comment. That wasn't somebody that's against the Trump administration saying that unless the department acts immediately to provide a source of stable and lawful labor. That wasn't someone else. That was the Labor Department that said that. Unless the Labor Department, who's criticizing the Labor Department, does something about this, it's going to get so much worse. Let me tell you what is it that they're doing. This is the worst back end of it. The Labor Department made this case in paperwork documenting a new rule that took effect October 2nd that effectively lowers pay for seasonal migrants working in agriculture under the H-2A visa program. The move is aimed at giving farmers easier and legal access to foreign workers to, quote, avoid imminent widespread disruption across the U.S. agricultural sector, and is expected to cut farmers' labor costs by $24 billion over the next 10 years. So what they're now doing as they get rid of and deport all these folks that they say are violent criminals, drug dealers, and murderers and rapists, now they're lowering the amount of money that farmers have to pay what they now consider documented and legal immigrants to come in and do the work for even cheaper. It's almost like slave labor. It's almost like this administration, in talking about make America great again, they want to go back to what it is they thought was great, which is one step closer to absolute and utter slave labor. Last slide, I promise. This new rule changes how the Labor Department calculates pay for farm workers on the H-2A visas, that federal program for seasonal migrant workers in agriculture, and allows farmers to pay migrant laborers less. Have you heard about migrant laborers making tons of money, but they're going to pay them less? It also shifts the burden for paying for worker housing from employer sponsors to migrant workers, with some exceptions. This responds to the economic situation that the wages have gotten too high, and it's contributing to some of the inflation at the grocery store that was big in the last campaign. That's what Chris Schulte, who's a lawyer at the Fisher Phillips, who represents employers in agriculture. Are you kidding me? You know how all these undocumented immigrants, they're making way too much money, man. They're really hurting these American farmers by making too much money. So let's first take away all these farmers' ways of trade and making money. Then let's give them a bailout. On top of that bailout, then we'll say, well, you guys can have these specific farm workers, but you can pay them much less and save yourself some money. Look at this roundabout way to bring in money to all the rich oligarchs and the fascists in the White House, while also acting like they give a damn about the destruction of the farm industry, the trade policies in this country, and the economy overall. This is supposed to be the Band-Aid. So, like I said before, and like many other people who know what they're talking about that I listened to before I said this have said before, things are bad. And just because they keep saying golden era and we're coming to this point, and in 6 months, and 8 months, and in 12 months, it'll get better. I guess, according to the Labor Department, things need to change in order for things to get better. Except those changes make things worse for the most vulnerable people. That's how fascism and rich elitists that run this fascist government work. That's how it works. Maybe it's because I was in a bad mood this morning. I decided to go for this type of deep dives of the trash that these guys are carrying out. This is the implementation of these policies. This is what's outlined in the things and the plans that they had in place. And the veil and the cover over it is the hate, the anger, the talk about the murder and the killings and all this stuff that isn't really reality. That's the veil, while behind the scenes, they're doing things like this. Like I said, that post where they admitted that they're screwing things up, that was on some like rare, barely ever looked at, but publicly viewable place. They put it out there. So they can't, they can easily come forward and say, we told you guys that we're screwing you over. You accepted it while you were afraid of that trans athlete, the two of them that are in the country.